In this video, I'm going to talk about doing things for love versus doing them for money. Doing things that you love, you're passionate about, versus doing things for money. And then how do you do things you love for money? Can you do both? And so on. There's this common advice given, right? Find something you love to do for money. Love what you do. You'll never work a day in your life, all that. And everybody is more and more is searching to do that. It used to be more of a accepted thing that you get a job and you have a career, and whether you like it or not doesn't matter all that much. The point is to work, have a career, make money, support a family. And more, particularly in the West, particularly in the US, the idea of finding something you love and doing that for money, your passion, finding something you're passionate about, doing that for money. And this is a nice dream, and some people do it and figure it out and find it. But the thing that you got to realize, and which I've learned the hard way, and I'll get into more detail about that, is that once you are doing something for money, it changes the nature of that thing and your relationship to it. Meaning, let's say you love to, for me, I love to tell stories. And once I started to do it for money, write scripts for money in the US and the Hollywood film industry, it changed the whole thing for me. Once I started doing it for money, I was no longer just letting my imagination run wild, writing stories that I was super passionate about and I loved, because now I have to write for someone else, and what they think is good, and what they think is good is what they think will make money. And that's based on what has already been made and has made money in terms of movies or TV shows, and is antithetical to imagination, or it's totally different than just going with my imagination and making something creative and new that I haven't seen before, because they want, the Hollywood film industry, they want something that has already been made before. And it's because then it's a sure bet that it'll make money. And they want the same thing, just with a new fresh paint on it, a new little spin. Turn the dog to a cat, turn the man to a woman, and give me the same movie. That kind of thing that's what they do. And this video is not really meant to be about the film industry. It's more about this doing things you love for money and what happens when you do that, because this applies to just about everything, not just writing movies. Once it becomes a business, once you have to make money, then you got to do all the business things. Then you are doing it for someone else in one shape or form. You're doing it for your customers, investors, and then you have to change what you're doing to fit their needs and desires, right? But then also you have to deal with all the business stuff, right? You have to deal with sales, marketing, accounting, employees and team, etc., and inventory in a store, ordering, logistics, manufacturing. You get the picture. The point is, now you're surrounding all this, the thing you love, with all the business stuff, and you got to do all that business stuff to make money, to make it succeed as a business. And so now you're doing a lot of stuff that you don't love, even if the business is built around something you love or are passionate about. You still have to do all this business stuff around it. And so that can take a lot of the love out of it. In other words, it then changes how much you actually love the thing, because it becomes enmeshed with all the business stuff. And so most of the examples that you see of people making a lot of money and loving what they do are the people that love business. Those are the people. Think of Gary Vaynerchuk as an example. Those people are loving business, and that's why they love what they do, because to love doing business, to love making money, you got to love the business of it. Someone loves fitness, they start a fitness brand of some kind, a gym or fitness apparel or supplements or something connected to fitness, but then they're running the business, they're running the gym, and it's not so much about the thing they love. So what does this mean, or what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say, if you have something you love, keep doing it for no money, is what I'm saying. Find something that makes money and find a way to do that you like, at least if not love. And so I'll give, more examples from my life. I improv comedy, basically where you go up and you act out scenes, comedy scenes, such as that would be in a movie or play or a sketch, but you're making it up on the spot. This is something that I've gotten back into since I moved here to Bali. I'd done it years ago in Los Angeles and New York, and now being in Bali, found an improv community and started doing it again. It was a really eye-opening experience for me just to actually start doing it here versus Los Angeles and New York. And this connects to doing things for love versus doing things for money. In Los Angeles and New York, most of the people doing improv there are doing it to use it as a springboard into an acting career, and some a writing career, but they're trying to get into show business, trying to get into Hollywood or the New York theater scene or both. And so they're using it as a means to an end. And the end has to do with money and career. And so most people, there are exceptions for sure, but the majority of people that I interacted with when I was doing improv in those places were so concerned about career and making an industry, they weren't doing improv for the love of it. And that really changed the nature of it. People were much more competitive. They were very competitive. They were very political and backstabbing and cutthroat. And it was just a lot less fun. And I got turned off to it and stopped doing it after a couple of years, because even though I really loved it and was finding success at it and getting a lot of validation from experienced teachers and improvisers that I had talent and I should keep going with it, I just got turned off by everybody, the political nature of it, and just that this is something to springboard my career, not something to create art in itself, to create great shows, great comedy shows for an audience. They were doing it in order to then get noticed and discovered by someone from Hollywood, the film industry. And the weight that put on it, and the meanness and the lack of support and collaboration, and improv especially is a very collaborative art form. And so that turned me off. But then coming here to Bali, people are doing improv here. There's no acting or film industry they're trying to get into here. They're just doing it for fun, purely for fun, for the love of the game. And that completely changed everything for me. It just feels different. You don't even have to get into what people are saying. It just feels different. When people are doing something just for the love of it, it feels different, and everybody is much more alive. They're having much more fun. They're happier. They're kinder. And I love it. And so the love of the game for me came back because I'm around people that are just doing it for the love of the game. You've heard, of course, you reflect the people that are around you, right? You reflect the people around you. And so who are you surrounding yourself with determines a lot about how you are, how you feel, where you go, how you succeed or don't at whatever you're trying to do. And so now so just using this as an example, being around these people that love it, I started to love it. I'm doing it for love. It's awesome. And then I started teaching classes in it. And first I was just doing it for the love, just to help people get better and bring the knowledge that I had gained from taking, classes in the US, plus long career as a comedy writer and director, which then crafted my skills as far as comedy and how to be funny and all that. So I have a lot to offer in that department. So I wanted to help people here and then just up-level the improv game. But then, so teaching it's been rewarding and valuable, but then money starts to come into play, right? Because people pay for classes, and I I was charging a little bit at first and then more, but there's this thing of when you're like charging some money but not full price that gets into this weird gray area where you start to feel, or I started to feel, undervalued, and people were like taking it for granted and not really respecting my time and the effort that I was putting in. Because if you're not paying much, you're less, you treat it, or a lot of people treat something that they're not paying much for with less reverence or less weight than if they are paying a lot for it, right? They are more likely to skip classes or what have you if they're not paying that much for it. And so this was going on, and so it started to feel not good. And like I was being undervalued, and that's why Tim Ferriss says, do it for free or full price, no in between. Because when you're doing it for free, then it's just for the love of the game, and you're not worried about money. But when you're full price, you feel, like you're properly compensated and valued. Then in between starts to get in this weird area where, I started to not feel like I was being respected and valued. And then also I'm just concerned with filling the classes, getting people to pay and all that. And so some of the business stuff that I mentioned came into play. And I started to like it less and started to drain some of the passion and love out of it for me. And so this is like a small example. I'm just talking about teaching some improv classes in Bali. I'm not talking about starting a big business where, a lot more of these things would come into play. But for me, this is a personal example where I saw it all in very short order, meaning like I went through this whole process or experience in a short amount of time, meaning I was doing something just for the love of it, just something I loved for the love of the game, and then started to turn it into a little bit of a business by teaching classes. And that totally changed things for me in a noticeable way. The point of the video is just be very careful about starting to do what you love for money, trying to turn what you love into a business, because this is become such common advice. So a lot of people are doing it or trying to do it. And you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth losing some of your love for that thing in order to turn into a business and make money? And it might be. It might be worth it. You might be able to turn into a successful business where you're making good money and you still like it enough. There's still some elements of joy and pleasure in your business, right? You don't lose everything. You don't lose it all. But you're more than likely going to lose some. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And I think it's at least worth keeping some things in your life to do just for love, not for money. So even if you turn one passion into a business, keep another passion that is just for the love of it and not for money. And at least just bring this awareness, if you're turning a love or a passion into a business, bring this awareness that you may lose some love and passion, and you have to shift your passion to be about the business. Otherwise, you're going to start to resent the business, and because it's changing what you love into something you don't. And if you resent your business, well, it's unlikely to be successful. Going to this with your eyes open is quite valuable. Keep doing things you love. Not everything has to make money.